If you asked me to define friendship, I'd have no idea what to tell you. It's something so personal to everyone, something so rooted in our own subconscious beings that it can't quite be labeled with words like other concepts. It's easier expressed in anecdotes and memories than scholarly definition, similar to happiness or joy and involving so many emotions just like those. Its abstractivity is compounded even more by that. This fleeting nature of friendship is part of what makes me love the anime Madoka Magica as much as I do. I finally rewatched it after my initial anime years, and I was afraid I would rate the series lower than I remembered. Like with many other times, I was happy to be wrong. It's quite possible it may take another one of my very limited 10 out of 10 spots, joining Urobuchi's other masterpiece and my obligatory reference, Psycho Pass. I could go on for hours about any of the characters in Madoka Magica, but on a second pass of the series, Mami was much more than she originally seemed. Although she has limited screen time, the effects of her friendship with Madoka and Sayaka create waves through both of their lives and personalities, much more so than just their statuses as magical girls. She starts them both on the path of tragedy, made even more poignant by pure intentions and simple emotion. Mami isn't a terrible person, she's just a person. And those are the best characters, the ones who do things you come to understand as wrong, but could never blame them for. The ones whose essence is felt long after they're gone. The ones who represent their very creation down to its core. Mami is a perfectly imperfect character. It's obvious that Mami kicks off the action of Madoka Magica, bringing the titular Madoka and best friend Sayaka into the magical girl mix. Without her, they would never have led the lives they did, that's for sure, whether that would end for better or worse. And her death is the moment where the anime hits into fifth gear, crafting its narrative under the cover of the magical girl subgenre, but breaking from it with vigor before stomping its corpse well into the ground. The slow build to a 14-year-old taking on Armageddon with machine guns and explosives, fighting through outright mental torture, traveling back in time so many times, is downright amazing. But let's get back to Mami and that first moment of mental fuckery. Mami is pretty exemplary of a stereotypical magical girl. She has a flashy transformation, exaggerated attacks with mystical weapons, while she fights to protect the friends around her, complete with a cute familiar-like companion who may or may not be a bastard alien using humanity as cattle. Ignoring that last one, she's perfect for the bill, and the perfection doesn't end there. Mami is also a very exceptional hero. Her ideals are simple and to the point. Fight witches because they're the source of evil in the world. It's a very black and white prototypical justice, a trope existing through the ages of narrative. And she backs it up, first thing after her fights checking on those the witch was tormenting. It's kindness in a very pure sense, and pure is a good word for Mami and her outward appearance. Even the most basic details about her character scream perfection. Her motions in battle are smooth and flowing, like catching a cup of tea after the finishing blow, the supposedly stellar desserts she serves to her friends, and even her design. I don't think there's any coincidence that Mami is the most prototypically beautiful character out of the group. She matches a warm smile and friendly demeanor with just the right hint of confidence and hair so time-consuming to style that only Jessie from Pokemon would look down on it. Mami's death is shocking because of the veil of genre that coats the series, but it's tragic because of the veil that covers her. Magical girls are about wishes, that's the focus of the series at many early points, and their damning factor as well. Except Mami is different. Everyone else fails against her warning.
If you use your wish to grant someone else's, you should be careful you know exactly why you're doing it.
She's the only one who directly wishes for her own benefit, and so it's fitting she never dies under a curse as the others so often do. But she does die for a wish. Well, it may not have been the one that gave her magic, it was the one that gave her friends. A wish to have anyone by her side. With Madoka resolving herself to make a contract, Mami's longest wish can be fulfilled, and she's overjoyed at the result. And that joy, the burst of confidence it brings, is exactly what kills her. Not a curse or a contract, but a simple wish made by a simple human. The tragedy of Mami Tomoe is not one of a magical girl, but one of just a girl who became magic. Mami dies there, but she leaves behind something more powerful than herself, a frozen image of perfection in the minds of her students. In those final moments with Madoka, we get one of the few glimpses into the real Mami that our limited time with her never showed before. We get her directly telling the girl that she let herself become the role model for, "You need a better role model." Mami shows her weakness in this moment, everything that's behind the veil of perfection. What we see is, more than anything else, sheer loneliness. Mami made her wish to keep existing, not made it for something to help her keep existing, just to keep existing. Nearly dying in an accident, she gets to live on, alone and with the lifelong duty to help others at her own direct cost. She doesn't have a family and, due to her role as a magical girl, doesn't have friends either. Her time is spent at school and then on duty and by herself, something else she directly admits, saying,
When I'm scared or hurt, there's no one I can talk to. All I can do is cry on my own.
The weight of her life is pulling down on her, and she simply lacks the means to express that to anyone else. How could she before Madoka and Sayaka? No one would believe that she was a magical girl fighting witches in the shadows at night, and that's the source of her problems. So she genuinely is alone in her world, learning to keep everything in and present a front of "I'm okay" at all times, because what other choice is there? If someone catches on that she's depressed, what does she say? What does she do? It would only lead to more lies. And this eventually would start to infect the rest of her personality as well. So I understand why she doesn't let on to Madoka and Sayaka the truth of being a magical girl for the most part. And I understand why she pushes to make them magical girls as well, so she can share her experience with anyone for the first time in years. But she knows what she's bringing them into. She says Madoka needs a better role model because Mami knows her own shortcomings in that moment, in every moment where she didn't let them know how bad it could be. She gives them some warnings about the danger of the work and the risk of wishes, but never about the depression, the isolation or loneliness, the things she hides the most. And in her weakest moment where this shows, she pushes so hard she even tells Madoka,
We'll have a feast, and you can ask Kyubey for a fabulous cake.
She's okay with Madoka wasting her wish if it means she can finally have someone else. Anyone else. Despite this one moment, Mami crafts in their heads the idea of a perfect magical girl, one who will always smile, one who never stumbles or falls, and one who fights for a pure sense of justice. She starts to crack to Madoka, but Mami's perfection lives past her death because they never got to experience who she really was underneath. To them, this is the ideal, contrasted harshly against Homura, the only one Mami was openly aggressive towards. Although she maintains her confidence around Homura, she openly challenges her rival's authority and serves as the direct opposite stance on Madoka and Sayaka's transformation. Homura is a cold and distant girl who shows up, speaking like she knows everyone and giving vague warnings about the future. She's similarly perfect to Mami, being shown as exceptional at studies, sports, and combat alike, although her persona is quite different. While Mami welcomes them to a new, exciting life with open arms and a warm smile, providing a role model to follow and a friend to cling to, Homura merely presents a vague warning through a distant front. The most striking difference between the two, however, is their morals concerning magical girls. Mami is able to maintain a stance of helping everyone, everywhere, no matter what, while the solitary and hardened Homura fights outwardly only for personal benefit, lumping Madoka's well-being in with her own, and attempting to strike down everything Mami represents of magical girls. So when she dies, the stage is set as good versus evil, right versus wrong, and one to follow versus one to not. The tragedy of her death is that they never saw the tragedy of her life, and part of the tragedy of Homura becomes the tragedy of Mami in trying to help, simply creating something that would make them even more dangerous, even more depressed and lonely. If they had known how she really felt, alone and scared, maybe their choices would have been different. But that was a future that could never be. The danger surrounding her death as an idol is shown most obviously in Sayaka. She's steadfast in her blind ideals, refusing the potential of harm to even one person she deems innocent. As she slips off the deep end into insanity, there's something strengthened in her, and that's the idea of Mami. The sense of black and white justice, the perfection and warmth of magical girls, and the power to help everyone with a smile at all times, never backing down or allowing any harm. This is what contract holders represented to her, exemplified against Homura, one of the couple she views as unworthy. This clinging to Mami is everywhere in her personality.
Mommy really was the nicest person.
I guess I'm not a hero after all. What would Mommy think if she was still here?
They don't care about anything but themselves. But Mommy wasn't like them.
Although it's not all of Sayaka's reasoning, we'll have the rest in another video on her, we can see this remnant of Mami in everything she does. Her first fight after transforming is to save Madoka and many others from the jaws of a vile witch, because the duty of a magical girl is to defeat witches and save innocent people. Her fighting style is very reminiscent of Mami, immediately making multiple weapons appear from her outfit. And then she clashes with Kyoko, because while Homura and Mami are very different, Kyoko is the most true anti-Mami. She's blunt, crass, and selfish. She doesn't fight for anyone else and actively allows harm to fall on innocent lives because it will make hers easier. She doesn't have friends, but only because she sees them as a weakness. Where Mami has no time for them, Kyoko has all the time but refuses anyway. The differences are apparent in their designs as well, Kyoko being much more casual compared to the elegant senior magical girl. One fights from afar, the other up close, showing their differences in ideals, confrontation versus delicacy. What makes these differences that enrage Sayaka even more crushing is we see that in other timelines they're all friends despite these differences. Sayaka is the most confrontational to the others, but they all coexist perfectly fine. But for the main timeline of the series, their differences drive Sayaka to madness, forcing her to solidify a stance contrary to them, even when it means her humanity suffers in the process. But there's more to that, more we'll cover another time because Sayaka deserves her own video. Sayaka's downfall, her consumption via curse, is the result of Mami's mix of goodwill and selfish desire for anyone else who could ease her pain. The pain that so many could never feel. Maybe if she had been there for Mami's moments of weakness, seeing what Madoka did, she would have felt differently with a slight peek through the cracks, but she never knew. She never knew that Homura couldn't help, rejecting the possibility that she even may, saying later to Madoka,
She waited until that witch killed Mommy. And then she shows up like she wants to help. So she sat back and let Mommy die.
And Homura couldn't help because Mami let those few seconds of confidence get to her. The years of learning that she had to take things on by herself, chaining up Homura for the fight. That decision led to everything and allowed the false Mami to exist after the real one died. A second one, even more perfect than Madoka's, alone in Sayaka's head, driving her to strive for a perfection that simply never existed in the first place. The tragedy of Sayaka is in part the tragedy of Mami. And then we get to Madoka. Having seen more of the truth behind their teacher, Madoka is able to be much more measured in her attitude and her reverence of the dead. She never blindly followed the ideals of love and purity like Sayaka tried to, but instead brought them into herself, doing what little she could without being exactly like them. Not fighting but supporting from the sides, reassurance and friendship for the entire cast. It's fitting that she does this, the only thing she's ever known to do, and the very thing that led to Mami's greatest joy and her moments of darkest despair. It's safe to say she would have taken any friend, it didn't have to be these two. But what Mami got was the meek and timid Madoka. But maybe someone more sure and assertive would have led to a different outcome. Someone who had the will and blind faith to jump in on day one, learning the trade side by side and preventing a deadly solo fight. Maybe someone more assured could have seen Mami for what she was and forced the once leader to grow and evolve in some way, showing her what the true value of friendship could be. Sometimes you have to let someone be hurt so they can grow. For how exceptional she was, this is something the most powerful of them all could never do. Madoka is perfect in many ways by the conclusion, but she didn't have to be and wasn't perfect for Mami. But then, in her final sacrifice, Madoka becomes the exact person her mentor failed to be, saving not just a city, but an entire universe. Not only assisting the world here and now, but before and after, helping every single person she wished to, known and unknown alike. It even goes down to her looks, becoming flashy to no end, grand in her entrances and exits, hair more flowing and exaggerated than ever before, and striking down her foes smoothly from afar. This should sound very familiar. Madoka's tragedy is being forced to pick up the slack where everyone else fell. Her initial factor, the starting pistol that set her on this path, none other than Mami. Although she incorporates the shortcomings of every magical girl, none is more present than the original. The flawed and selfish Mami giving way to a god who could finally ease her pain. A friend who could finally be what she needed. A cost that's nearly immeasurable. The tragedy of Madoka is also the tragedy of Mami. And when we look at everything about Mami, I think it's safe to say she is perfect. In another way though. She may not be the best magical girl, but she's the perfect truth of magical girls. She may never become a witch, but she embodies the contract with Kyubey more aptly than anyone else. On the surface, and at first glance, it looks glamorous, heroic even, the very stuff of wishes just to be like her, let alone be like her and have any wish you could want granted. But under the surface, the reality of it, it's something much different. It's the stuff of loneliness, the world unaware of their status as sole protectors. The stuff of sadness, knowing that the very act of trying to help is what causes so much pain nonetheless. The stuff of despair, having a fate sealed from the very first moment. Mami brings Madoka and Sayaka into her world much like Kyubey does. Not with outright lies or grand deception, but abstraction of the truth, omissions that paint a very different picture. Meaning well, but at the end of the day, acting for their own benefit, no matter the positive effects. The perfection and glory that slowly fades into despair, exactly like the very anime does itself. Mami is the perfect character for Madoka Magica, the essential introduction to this take on the world of magical girls. A character who could never escape her own tragedy, nor avoid the tragedy she imposed on others. Hey there, thank you for checking out this video. If you're a returning subscriber, you've probably noticed a few things that look different and possibly sound different in this video than previous ones as well. I'm putting a bit more into the visual side of things. So I've got some lights, finally got a new microphone over the one I've been using for 4 years, working on a nice backdrop over there, so there's a lot of big changes coming up in these visual moments that I like to put in between the clips here and there. But that was a big ramble about that. So I hope that is adding something to it. The sound quality being a bit better, the lighting and everything being a bit better, and hopefully we'll have some interesting backgrounds coming up as well. I have other things to say, but I always forget them and I never write them down because I'm very bad at what I do. But one of those things is I will have a link to my Discord in the description below if you want to reach me directly, chat with some other fans, different things like that. We'll try to get a little bit more going on down there in the server. Usual stuff as well. If you like the video, leave a like so I know to keep making more like this, or address the anime again, or leave a comment letting me know what you liked about it, what you didn't, how you feel about the series, or what you'd like to see me cover in the future as well. Whether it's a topic, a series, a combination of a few things, I'd love to hear it, and what you thought of the anime as well, because that's what I love doing about this is spreading love for it and making people think about it in different ways and topics related to it that they explore. That's always what I try to do here, is just to get people thinking about anime and about the amazing ideas that go into them. I'm really rambling. I'm sorry about that. So I'll end this one here and just say, more videos on screen, subscribe thing. I'll put it right over my face. In the first video where I made myself look good, even though I have terrible hair. Still rambling. Thanks for watching. And I hope I'll see you again soon. Still god-awful outros.